Mm.
Good morning and welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. I'm Tony Haggerty at Haggerty10 on the Twitter handle or X handle. As I say, I'm not too sure what it's called. I think it's X, isn't it? But there you go. And it's Friday the 13th and I'm joined today, not in any way coincidentally, but by Kevin McKenna, the wonderful Kevin McKenna. How are you, Kevin? Are you well?
Aye, very good. Very good. Yeah. Always feel a bit flat during international breaks, but maybe that's just me. Just a throwback.
Indeed, we're all missing our club fix, but we'll get into talking about Celtic as soon as possible. But first things first, we have a new sponsor, and as you can see from the top of the screen there, it's MPH Group, and they specialise in plumbing, heatings, kitchens, and bathrooms. And also, the morning briefing is brought to you by MPH Group, and they are Scotland's award-winning family-run all-trade specialist covering all of mainland Scotland. And if you choose to opt for a service from MPH Group, it automatically enters you into MPH's incredible holiday giveaway, and you could win a 7-night stay at the luxurious 5-star Moon Palace Resort in Cancun, Mexico. And if you want to know more about the services that MPH provide, then the descriptions are in the podcast. You can look on there, log on there on the YouTube, and you'll see all the links to the social media, Facebook, Instagram, etc., and their phone number, and you can have a look and find out more information. So we say thank you to MPH Group for sponsoring the Celtic Way morning briefing. Now, Kevin, we had a few Celtic players in action last night for their international clubs for their countries. Callum McGregor was one of them, Gustaf Lagerbielke and Lewis Palma. So we'll go in that order, and we'll just say Callum McGregor played for Scotland last night. They went down 2-0 to Spain. Still need a point to qualify for the European Championships in Germany next summer. But robbed of a goal, Scott McTominay's free kick. Offside, then it was for a foul on the keeper, then it was for offside. Don't know what they're doing.
I think you can always...
Conflicting arguments there, Kevin, yeah.
You can always tell immediately, can't you, by the reaction in the opposition players.
Mm-hmm.
None of them were claiming for anything.
No.
I do have to say, though, that looking again at it, as I did several times, there is a possibility that Jack Hendry, I think, does impede the goalkeeper. Whether that is in any way material to the goal is questionable. In fact, it wasn't, because there's no way that any keeper was getting that shot.
Yeah.
And also, keepers, 6'2", 6'3", so is Jack Hendry, right enough. But you do get physical contact in the 6-yard box. So yeah, maybe on balance it should have been a goal. But the reaction, the kind of attempt to explain it by UEFA immediately after it, what was coming up was conflicted. So they obviously aren't entirely sure what was going on or what the infringement had been. So they're not. Then presumably VAR wasn't immediately...
Mm-hmm.
Didn't immediately know what the infringement was. So if VAR has some doubt as to what the infringement is, then there's no infringement, you would have thought.
Yeah, I think Scotland, or certainly the SFA, are now within their rights to ask for a transcript of that, aren't they? They can do that as to how they arrived at a decision. So I think this will boil over or keep going for a while until Scotland get that transcript to see how they reached the decision that they did. But Callum McGregor and his teammates are on the end of a sore one, aren't they? To be fair, let's be honest.
Yeah, I thought Scotland played well.
Mm-hmm.
I had my doubts. You're going to play Spain in Spain, so you kind of fear You feared the
Yes.
worst. But, well, put it this way, if Scotland had taken the lead at that stage in the game, you couldn't say they didn't deserve that. They had, it was a bit of a shaky start, as you would expect, in a game against the former world champions.
Yeah.
I thought Scotland played well over the piece.
So
I thought it was really, because after their performance against England, which they weren't really at the races against England, and also I think England are, we're looking genuinely at their best team since
be afraid, be very afraid.
since the year before we won the European Cup.
Yes.
And so you're looking at that and think, oh God, we're back to Scotland. But it was a friendly, and I thought Scotland played well in large parts of the game, and it kind of gives me a bit of hope that if and when we do get to Germany for the finals, that it won't be the usual experience. I can remember when we used to get to these stages, which is, let's see what we can get out of here, watching between cracks in your fingers. Steve Clarke is fashioned a team somehow that can now actually go toe to toe with the top clubs and play a bit of football, and get something. Obviously, we've got an issue with the striking position simply because, you want the going rate for a half decent striker at that level, European club level, was what, 40 million plus. We don't have, we just don't have that sort of quality of striker available.
There's no slight on Shea Adams or Lyndon Dykes, but
no, not at all.
We are good operators and decent players, but we have non-scoring centre forwards, don't we?
Yeah,
which is not great, is it?
So what we've achieved, what Steve Clarke's achieved, given that reality, is incredible, and it's great to see. It's great to see Callum McGregor playing at that stage and playing well. You want to see him maybe slightly more advanced, but an awful lot of his work is unfussy and it doesn't attract the camera. But every player in that Scotland team, as with Celtic, knows they can pass the ball to Callum McGregor and Scotland will retain possession. He will do something useful with it.
Yeah.
Now, those players are worth their weight in gold. I'm thinking when Paul Lambert was playing for Borussia Dortmund, when they won the European Cup in 1997, and you're thinking initially he's the least effective player in that team because they're all superstars, they're all German internationals. But see if you ask any, and I've seen several former Borussia Dortmund players talk about Paul Lambert's value to that team, and that is their greatest ever team. Borussia Dortmund team. It's the only time they've won the European Cup. And they will say that, when Paul Lambert was there,
he was the most valuable member of the team, yeah.
It was just a sense of security. They just knew he would be there. He was fit enough to get around the park. He was always open to the pass and he wouldn't waste the ball. And in a modern game, that's just dynamite. And Callum's got it, and it's great to see him operate at the very highest level because it can only be good for Celtic.
Well, he's been absolutely excellent for club and country, hasn't he? And like you, there's very few players who play in that midfield position and who are under that pressure, who don't give the ball away, but he just seems to retain it. And as you say, when you give the ball to Callum McGregor, you'll do something constructive, or you'll get it back.
Yeah,
and it will remain in your possession. And he's got an uncanny knack of doing that for both club and country. And he's just, you say, he is that security blanket. He is kind of that Paul Lambert player, and Paul Lambert's spoken about that as well. He's very humble about that, Paul, when he talks about, he talks about himself as if, well, I was just there to just kind of, give the ball to the likes of Andreas Muller and all, all these kind of guys in Reedland. You say to yourself, you did more than that. But as you say, his teammates appreciated the job that Lambert did, and I think Callum McGregor's a player's player, isn't he? He's one of those
Yeah, I
guys
mean,
that you love to have in your team,
it
and you
just is
appreciate the
great.
value of him. Yeah,
I just, in the current argot, he recycles the ball. In fact, you could say he recycles the ball so much he should be getting some sort of green energy award, shouldn't he? We just keep goes to him. It's staying with us.
yeah. And I look at Callum McGregor, and people talk about some wonderful goals he scored and things he did, but to me, the day that typified Callum McGregor was that day at Ibrox when Celtic won 2-1. When Cameron Carter-Vickers scored the goal, Celtic went one
And
down
he drove,
after 3 minutes.
right into the heart
Drove
of the defence when they
after
were a
7
goal up.
minutes. Yeah. And the thing is, it was the celebration after it. There was no celebration. Rogic kind of dinked it in, and it was like Callum McGregor got the guys together, and he was just like, right, we're back in the game. Let's start playing. They were really annoyed at themselves, Callum McGregor especially, and it was just that kind of chat that there was about a cluster of 7 or 8 players who were kind of delighted that they got an equaliser after 7 minutes, 4 minutes after Rangers had gone ahead, and it was just that kind of, right, let's start now. We were pretty sloppy there, and that typified Callum McGregor to me. That just refusing to accept defeat that day or anything other than a victory, and people look on at that and they admire that and they stand back and on. I just looked at him that day and I thought, you'll do for me. He'd always done for me, but just that day he kind of stepped up to the plate, and I thought, you know what, there is something special about you. You're a top and consummate professional, and that day I saw it on display for myself, and I think everybody was worried about would he be a captain like Scott Brown. He's certainly in that mould, but he's a different kind of captain.
Yeah.
And eyebrows were raised when he got the role, but he's took to it like a duck to water, and I'm delighted at that. And you do feel safe with Callum McGregor around, don't you?
I feel I'm quite puzzled that he's got to this stage in his career. He's what is he, 29, 30?
Yeah.
30,
so
and he hasn't won the Football Writers Player of the Year award. So since he's been around, so we've had Charlie McGrew, 2012, Lee Griffiths, Chris Commons, Craig Gordon, Lee Griffiths again, Scotty Sinclair, Scott Brown, James Forrest, Odson Edward, Stephen Davis, Craig Gordon, I think the last 10, 12. And they all are excellent footballers, and you're thinking in 4 or 5 of those years, Callum must have been a contender. But unlike all of those winners, deserving though they were to be at least considered, the burden the extra burden, playing burden that Callum's had in many of those years in playing for Scotland, is very onerous, and to have maintained those standards in all those games. In fact, I think there was a period, wasn't there, a couple of years ago, where he played more consecutive games or more games in a full calendar year than any other player in Europe.
Yeah, there was.
And you're thinking like it was kind of like Kenny Dalglish when he played for Celtic. So Kenny Dalglish was excellent for Celtic in the early to mid 70s and left Celtic without ever having won a Player of the Year award. And then goes down to England and wins the English Player of the Year in 1979 and 1983, and I think was third at one year for the European Player of the Year. So you're thinking by the time Callum, it's time for him to leave, wouldn't it be a travesty if he's never once been Player of the Year? Because over a 10-year period, I think there is no other player who's been more important to his club in Scottish football than Callum McGregor has been.
That's astonishing, isn't it? One with Callum McGregor and with Kenny Douglas as well. Everybody knows our thoughts on Kenny Douglas. But yeah, I totally agree with that. I think Callum's would be deserving of that award. Would be a deserving recipient. But again, it's down to the voting, isn't it? I'm sure many football writers would have voted Callum, but clearly not enough voted for him to win it. But yeah, he's just been a role model of consistency, hasn't he? And I guess, like everything else, I don't imagine he would bother about individual awards because he always seems to be the team player, and as long as he's pleasing his manager,
yeah,
and
totally.
He's pleased the last few managers and his teammates, then I guess if
and
it comes along, he would accept it. But
I like the way he conducts himself.
So do I.
And he gets a lot of respect beyond Celtic for that.
Yeah.
And in his interviews, he's never monosyllabic. He will always add some analysis. He obviously thinks deeply about the game. Doesn't allow himself to be trapped into either overstating Celtic's performance or understating the opposition. He's always respectful of the opposition. Every game, every victory has been hard won, even if we've won by several goals. He's a credit to our club, and I'm actually quite proud of him.
Yeah, I echo that completely. I just think there's been, like you, there's been no better player in Scottish football than Callum McGregor over the last 5 years, certainly anyway, to my reckoning, possibly more. But yeah, I mean, I think if individual awards come along, then he will accept them. But as long as the team's doing well and that they're still winning and still winning the title and winning trophies, he won't care too much about the individual stuff, will he?
Nope. All the better for us.
Now, someone else who hit the headlines last night, and I'm glad that he did, because hopefully that can transfer to his club for him, is Gustaf Lagerbielke. Got his first goal for Sweden in a 3-1 win against Moldova, and he was absolutely delighted. And this is what he said. He said after it, "It's a childhood dream to play here at Friends for the national team, and then scoring a goal is a bonus. I'm very happy right now. I have scored a few goals in training, and there have been no goal jesters." He performed a wee celebration after scoring. So when you get the chance, you have to try to take it. I think I made a good effort, but it's up to Jan Anderson and Peter Vettergren. But I always load up as if I am going to play. So there's a man who's happy that he's opened his account for Sweden, and here's hoping that he can come back and make a fist of it and challenge for the central defence position. He was sent off against Feyenoord, probably very unfortunately. He was hooked after 45 minutes at Fir Park. Kind of mixed start for Gustaf Lagerbielke, but I mean, he was in the defence alongside Liam Scales at Ibrox when he kept a clean sheet. So he's, there's been some good, bad, and indifferent stuff from him, Kevin, but hopefully that gives him the confidence boost that he needs to come back to his club and say, right, I'm in this mix here. I'm going to show Brendan Rodgers and the Celtic supporters what I'm all about.
I like him.
Yeah.
There's something about him. You know what I like about him? I might have got him completely wrong here, but I have a sense that he's got a good conceit of himself. And yeah. I mean that in the best way possible, right? Yeah. He's got ability. He's aware of his ability. He's unfazed. Like, let's see if you watch him after that, and let's face it was an error that led to the Rangers goal that was to be a foul, which I think we discussed, and I think it was a foul. Marginal though it might have been, mad though we might have been if it had been awarded against us in those circumstances, but technically it was a foul. So in that atmosphere where that your error might have led to a Rangers goal, and even though it gets knocked off, right, it's a bear pit, there's none of your fans there, you're playing one of your first games against your closest rivals, and he just shrugged it off. I know there were a few hairy moments. Of course, there's a rookie centre half duo, and Rangers had reverted to their old 60s, 70s tactics of just chucking the ball in, right? So they're the kind of first line and last line of defence, and I thought he just kind of this is me. I'm a centre half. This is what I do. Some I win, some I lose. Quite a kind of chilled Northern European vibe going on there. Even knows that post-match quote after scoring last night, that it's there too. And he's so young, 21, 22. Yeah. So centre halves, you don't often get very young centre halves. They're kind of grizzled. They kind of come into the team gradually before they kind of make an impact. We've got another year or so to develop him here and there. Doesn't have to be playing all the time, and I don't think he will either. But I think we've got something there. He's a good stature. He's not afraid of attacking the ball. He's not afraid to take responsibility. Brendan Rodgers, as we all know, is a very, very good technical football coach who will be working solidly with him on his ball to feet, getting it out from under his feet, moving it on, taking the ball with his back, linking the midfield, no matter how many opposition players are around him, because that is the modern reality at the top level of football. There's something about him. I like the cut of his jib.
That is the phrasing that you like. And as you say, he did shrug off that mistake. It was as if it didn't happen. And then he was determined to show people, I can play. And lots of other people, especially younger players, that could have affected them badly. And they could have led to mistake after mistake in that Ibrox game, but it didn't. And somehow him and Liam Scales muddled through that game, kept a clean sheet, and Celtic won the match. And I think it's credit to the two of them, because Liam Scales was guilty of losing the header in the first minute as well. And the only reason the guy was offside is because Liam Scales had vacated, that hole, and I think it was Dessers had ran in and put it in. So yeah, the two of them, I think that they did the same thing. They just thought, okay, got away with one, put it behind us, concentrate on the job at hand, and did the job at hand, and Celtic won the match. So I was quite pleased. I'm like you. I think there's the raw ingredients of a footballer there, isn't there?
Yeah.
And I think the manager loves that, doesn't he? He loves the raw ingredients, because then he can get credit for turning them into the player that we all hope and believe that Lagerbielke can be. Because we heard he had prowess in the air before he came to Celtic, and he scored goals for his club. So it's a good thing, and it's a good thing. It was a decent header last night. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah, I did. And it's Sweden. Sweden are a very solid, very good, very consistently high-performing international team who performed far better than Scotland have over the last 10, 15, 20 years, with some genuinely world-class players in their ranks, including, a couple of our legends, Big Johan and Henrik, etc. So it's great to see a 21-year-old Celtic player scoring a goal as a defender for an international team such as Sweden. It's great for us, good for him as well.
Yeah, I mean, I also thought he was very unfortunate against Feyenoord to be sent from the field, and people making early judgments on them. That's always going to happen, especially as a defender. You're always going to get people making early judgments from him. But I've kind of reserved judgment on him. I just want to see him really get in that mix, the centre-half mix. And it's very early in his Celtic career, and he is very young, but he's forced his way into that international side. He scored last night. So I'm thinking bit by bit, just build it, Gustaf, and you will, because you're big enough to become kind of a commanding centre-half. And as you say, he's the nature that he seems to have. It's like, well, you win some, lose some. That's the nature of being a defender. But and I'm pleased, and I think once once the manager kind of drums it into him, because I think the manager made the point after the Rangers game that Gustaf wouldn't do that again, dwell on the ball kind of thing. And, he did mention it, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, he's had a word with him clearly in the dressing room. If you have to rogie it or you're not sure, get rid of it. Don't be trying to take an extra touch. And you say, yeah, it was a foul, marginal, and he got away with it. You won't get away with it all the time, will you? So, and I guess he's learning as well, isn't he? He's learning a new style. He's came from a different country and all these kind of things. And he's maybe going back to, going back to Sweden. He feels a wee bit more comfortable in that setup, starting to grow in stature as a national defender, an international defender. And it augurs well for Celtic, because I think he will transfer that to his club form eventually, because you're playing against a better calibre of player when you play international football, and you have to learn. There's no ways about it, and you will learn. And I think he's young enough to learn. And he comes back and he's got one of the best club managers out there. So if it all sticks in and he retains it, then he will become a player of repute.
I agree. Also, in the Scottish, from a Scottish perspective, you'll remember this as well, but over several years, and we had it in Big Carol Starfeld's first season, there's always been this perception that the Celtic's defence, mainly because of our emphasis on attack, that it's a potentially kind of vulnerable area for us, that it's not an area that we perhaps place as much emphasis on as other clubs, because of we expect the lion's share of possession in club football, domestic club football. But starting with the recruitment of Cameron Carter-Vickers, and then the eventual development of Carol Starfelt into being a very solid partnership defender with Carter-Vickers, we've got a group of defenders, first choice and second choice, who are hardened pros. So like your Hearts or your Kilmarnock Rangers, who want to who think we can get some change out of them. They're a bit vulnerable. They're a bit kind of unsteady. That's not really happening anymore. And I think we saw that with Lagerbielke and Liam Scales when they'd been called in very, very difficult circumstances. And that it's characteristic of a defence which is no nonsense.
Yeah,
it's aggressive and it can play. And sometimes we're going to Tynecastle and the next game back, and you know exactly under Naismith how Hearts are going to approach this. Into the box, barging everything, expecting a certain degree of indulgence from the referee with the tackles. But, that's now meat and drink to us.
Rummel them up, as they say, Kevin. Rummel them up. Yeah.
Because they know they'll get away with it.
I love the opinion, Kevin, as well, that I look at those defenders that are there. I don't care what two Brendan Rodgers picks.
Yeah.
What permutation of any two. Can be Carter-Vickers and Scales. It can be Scales and Lagerbielke. It can be Nabrovsky. I know he get injured, Scales. But I look at that, and when all of them are fit, and whatever two are chosen, I say, great, they're going to do a job. Right. I trust them to do a job. I include Nat Phillips in that as well.
Totally.
So that, as you say, that area of the park doesn't give me any cause for concern now, because I think they are strong and they're robust. They can also play. And that was the thing about the likes of Johan Mjällby, Valharen, and Bobo to a point. Certainly Valharen and Mjällby could play, but Bobo just terrorised people.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, and so you need that too. But I actually think that Celtic have got it all nailed. There is an intimidation factor there with the likes of Cameron Carter-Vickers and another that plays. Scales is now shown that he likes a challenge as well. He's getting stuck in and wired in and winning headers and stuff like that. But they can actually play a bit of football as well. So I'm all for that. I mean, first and foremost, I want my defenders to defend. But clearly this manager, Brendan Rodgers, is working on their technique. And any two from all of those guys that I've mentioned, I think they can play, but I think they can also do the basic elements of defending as well. And there are no slouches in any of those departments.
I agree. Yeah, given what we were thinking at the start of the season when all our number 5s and 4s were going down like Skittles. And you're thinking, oh dear. And then you're kind of looking at our match schedule for the first quarter of the season. You're thinking, some of our rivals would be looking at both those factors and thinking, oh, they're vulnerable. We can catch them in a hop. And it hasn't happened because of precisely what you've just been saying.
Yeah. And also I think the manager's too shrewd and he's been around the block and he can pick a team and he can pick a formation and a discipline and a style and a philosophy that more often than not, certainly domestically, will get you results. Europe is a bit different because you're up against a different calibre of player. Everybody knows that. The players know that themselves. But I still maintain in the 2 games that they've played in Europe, they've been very unlucky. There's been moments in the game where you thought they were both games were there for the taking. Still got no points, I get that. But certainly domestically, I don't have any concerns about the manager or those players to go out and perform on any given day. The defeat down at Kilmarnock and Rugby Park, it happens. You have bad days at the office. You have days when you don't get, i.e. the rub of the green or the bounce of the ball. People point to that foul on Haksabanovic in the box and say it was a penalty. It wasn't looked at. You can argue the toss. That was in the last minutes. And
of course it was a penalty.
Yeah.
Of course it was a penalty.
So
that day long, wasn't it?
Those kind of things. So, and you accept that, which makes the Invincible season even more. You look at that and you think, what an achievement that is. Because you are a poor decision away from getting beat, a bounce of the ball away, a deflection. So to go through the whole season and win all 3 trophies back during Rodgers' first spell, I just think it's an incredible achievement. I really do. It'll never be surpassed. Nobody will do that again.
No.
Nobody. And people were talking about, oh, could it happen again under Brendan? 2 games in, you're out the League Cup. All right, no, it probably won't. But, domestically, I just think that the manager's got something about him and he is more than a match for anything. At this moment in time, that the teams can throw at Celtic and you just hope that it transfers into the European arena. That's what everybody's hoping for. And the signs are there for me that it's coming, And I spoke to Ken Dalglish the other day out at Hampden and he said the same. If they keep kicking the door, knocking on the door, and it'll open eventually,
Comments. Yeah. I was annoyed after the Feyenoord game. Partly because I was, you're just depressed because
the team's lost.
Yeah, another opener, Champions League opener that we've lost. We've lost every single one of our opening Champions League fixtures and the seasons we've been in. And then you look at Feyenoord and you think, God, on that performance, Motherwell or St Mirren would have given them a game. And I'm not insulting Motherwell and St Mirren there because they are being managed, both of those clubs are being managed very, very astutely by their respective coaches. And they're, playing well above, beyond themselves. Either of them could have given Feyenoord the game and we had a chance to take them. And a couple of errors. And then, God, Lazio. We were a better team.
Yeah.
We were just a better team. There's no 2 ways about it. In large parts of the game, we played better, more sophisticated, more technically able football than a top club from Serie A, as we did when Neil Lennon was manager.
Yeah.
And we did the same to a lesser degree, but nevertheless it was evident against one of the most, the top club from one of the most technically aware, technically gifted leagues in Europe, who had just won 6-0 in their own domestic league a few days before they played us, and who had scalped Ajax to the extent that the Ajax fans couldn't take it. I think they were 3-0 up, game gets abandoned, then they have to play it, and they scalped them 4-0. And we played well in that game, in that atmosphere. And I know, there were elements last season in games against Real Madrid, Shakhtar Donetsk, one of the games against Leipzig, and here we are again. This season, though, kind of been a bit more detached about it and taking a few steps back. What's different is that we've signed up all of our key players, and they all look as though they're happy to give us at least another season.
Yeah.
And the problem traditionally with Celtic is that when we have shown promise and we have been knocking at the door, as Kenny had said, we know that we're going to lose 3 or 4 of our key players, and we're going to have to rebuild again immediately for the onslaught of European fixtures that are going to come our way, kind of August, September, October. And I don't think that is going to be a massive concern for us this time next season. If we're keeping the core of that club, that team together, and we keep progressing, keep playing well, developing under the way that Brendan Rodgers wants us to play, we will be quite formidable this time next season, I think.
Yeah, one of those players in the Lazio game that featured prominently and thought he'd bagged the winner was Luis Palma.
Indeed.
And a VAR decision robbed him of a memorable winner against Lazio. But Palma was in action last night as well, and Honduras drew 0-0 with Cuba, and he played the full match. And one of the Honduran media outlets described it as a nightmarish match, and saying that the Honduran players will return home with their head down. But they're trying to qualify for the Copa America in America next year, and the tournament's been expanded, so there's 6 teams from the CONCACAF region going to be in it, and I think now Honduras need to beat Cuba on Monday to finish in the top 2 of their kind of equivalent of the Nations League.
See, I think the Honduran media have been so complacent because of the massive leaps and bounds that Cuban football has been coming on, right? That's a typical Honduran complacency that's let them down last year's. They need to get a grip of themselves.
So basically, I think they have to beat Cuba on Monday, finish in the top 2, and then they could face Canada. Canada in their hopes of qualifying for, the Copa America. But I'm just watching Luis Palma, and I genuinely think he's a decent work in progress, and there is definitely a player there, Kevin, somebody who's going to excite Celtic supporters. And I'm not saying he's a Jota replacement, but what he can replace in Jota terms is goals and assists, those double-digit numbers, by scoring double figures of goals, double figures and assists. Yeah, so
a player like him out there, he's confident at taking the ball. He can beat players. He's technically gifted. He can finish. He's a Celtic player in a traditional mode. And the start that he's had, the goals that he scored, and the ones that he should have scored that was knocked off, it's given him a lot of confidence. And he's you can see the way the players trust him as well. The way they against Motherwell, I think there was one point, I'm sure I saw Callum McGregor, and he's directing his colleagues to get the ball out wide to the left, because they know he can do something. They've seen as well what he can do in training. I'm delighted with him. I think he's going to get better and better, and I think he's going to play a lot of games for us this season.
I think he's coming to the boil nicely, isn't he? I look at the 2 goals he scored, Kevin, and the first one's meant. he's putting it into that area where it needs a touch, and if it doesn't get a touch, then it's in the back of the net.
He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, when you look at his highlights reel, there's been many goals he scored like that, where he's cut in and he's bent the ball in like that. Really difficult to defend, and defenders have that dilemma: do I touch this or not? Forwards, if they're going in, touch it, it's going to go in the net anyway. So, and then the second goal against Kilmarnock that he scored, that whip that he gets on it, no keeper saving that. From a short back lift and from distance as well. And you think to yourself, great. Still not seen his free kick prowess because he's meant to be deadly at set pieces. And you think to yourself, Celtic, I've got a right potent weapon here.
Yeah.
And this is a man who's, coming to the ball nicely. It seems to be comfortable now in the Celtic jersey, settled in, looking like he likes the look of everything and his teammates. He's settling in well with them. And as you say, Callum McGregor directing traffic, saying, give the ball to him. He'll do something. As long as you keep shunting the ball out to him, he'll create. So that I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, yep, I don't think it's a flight of fancy to say that he can score double digits.
Yeah.
And he can assist double digits as well this season and then get better, the next season.
And it's good. We've got another proven international player. It's good. These players are playing
at high level.
At that level, because these nations are potent. These are good, solid football nations, right? They're not nations who a generation ago, with Honduras, that Brazil, Uruguay, Argentina would expect to take 4 or 5 off. They know what they're doing. Great facilities, loads of people playing, good coaches. So I'm delighted that he's playing for Honduras.
Yeah, and unlike you, I'm just excited what Palma can bring to the table moving forward for Celtic this season, and also in Europe as well. As you say, it's vital that Celtic keep this nucleus of players together. And I think, like you, they could, next season be a force to be reckoned with, but they've got to stay. They've all got to stay together, and I think that's largely down to the reason why a lot of them did commit to long-term deals, because they maybe like the cut of Brendan Rodgers' jib, and he's maybe said, stay with me, we'll try and build something here. We'll resist any kind of offers that come in for you up to a point, unless it's mind-blown like Jota money from the Saudis. Then, you ask that question of Celtic, then you've got to say if that's the case, then players will be sold. But you have to retain that nucleus of your top players, don't you? And I think Palma could, in time, become another one of those vital assets for Celtic, or valuable assets for Celtic.
And what I'm talking to Kilmarnock, what a performance, Rio.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah. Again, I think some Celtic supporters, and I know what Brendan Rodgers said, after the game, said, today he began to play. I know what he was getting at. It could be misinterpreted. I think I'd mentioned in this programme a couple of weeks ago that, Celtic fans had been disappointed with some of his early season performances, but had maybe forgotten that he'd had quite a bad injury. He'd been out for several weeks, and it can take a bit, a few games to get up to speed, just the way he plays. Similar thing had happened in his first season, if you recall. Great start, 2 goals against Rangers, great goal against Hearts at Tynecastle. And then he kind of went off the boil for 2 or 3 months, and he just looked tired. And, well, that was because he hadn't had a rest, hadn't had a break. And the spell, the time frame where he'd come from Japan straight to us. And, he's an amazingly gifted player. And it was just great to see the way he played. And that goal was just, I could watch that. That could be in a museum, as they say. Everything about it, and a thing of beauty. And he thrives. He's one. I think he's one of those players that thrives on being confident, of being at the top of his game, where he knows he's fit, and the touch is coming back. Because the way he plays, much of what we admired about him, and I remember this in the one of the games at Hampden last season against Rangers. I think it was a 2-1 game, Kyogo's double. And the first half especially, he was a major difference because he was taking the ball with his back to the play and immediately sensing where his own players were, which allows him to just flick to keep the move going with a single pass with his back without having to look up, to keep the momentum of the move. But when you play like that, then your touch has to be 100% bang on. It has to be. And a touch player like that, when he's coming back from injury, if he's been out for a few weeks, if he's not up to match fitness, those sort of little touches, they don't desert, but they're just maybe a degree off here and there. And it looks like it's like, and I'm being guilty of this as well. Haggerty, what's the matter with your passing? Your passing's been off. And it isn't. It's just because of the attempt, the types of passes that he attempts, they have to be 100%, geometrically perfect, if you like. So 1 degree out, it looks like a really crap pass, but when it works, it just, it's like they can be game changers. They can open up defences. And it's coming back, and I think that's what Brendan Rodgers was alluding to.
Yeah. I mean, Saturday's goal was just the spin away from the Kilmarnock player was excellent, but just darting into space, it was a 5-a-side goal, Kevin.
Yeah.
Somebody just saying, yeah, listen, I can play a wee bit here, yep. He just walked into space. It wasn't as if he ran or he busted a gut to get into space. He saw it in pictures. And I think Alan Morrison highlighted, he put up a picture, and just as he's about to strike it, Matt O'Reilly's like that, because he said Matt O'Reilly sees the game in pictures as well. And he's celebrating before he's put it in the net. And you say to yourself, now these are midfielders that are playing alongside each other, knowing what each other is capable of. And I think I was laughing at that because I did see the picture and I thought, yeah, it's true. He clearly knew what he was going to do. And, just the way he skinned his marker and then just after that, just sublime control of the football. And even if we drill into the bottom corner of the net, it's still a difficult skill to execute, Kevin, but he made it look so simple on all those movements, didn't he? Without busting a gut and breaking sweat. It just came naturally to him. Also,
when we're playing against packed defences in Scotland, as we invariably are, it can take quite a bit of time, obviously, to break down. And we tend to get frustrated when we see the approach that Celtic are adopting, which is to play up to the edge of the box and try the intricate one-touch football that will unlock the defence. And some of us are crying out to get it wide, sling it in, and let's get on the end of it. That's the best way. But the likes of other clubs, because they are being well coached, and because they are, I think, other Scottish clubs, the kind of smaller Scottish clubs, their defensive strategies, the way they're set up defensively, are quite sophisticated, very effective, and just slinging the ball in. Okay, of course it's an effective tactic if you can get your winger, your attacking fullback, to the byline and get it cut back. But that doesn't always happen, and I'm not entirely sure if Johnson and Taylor are as effective as that as they are in sort of coming inside, playing in the midfielders. We've unlocked. We've scored some cracking goals, including Haggerty's goal against Kilmarnock. You mentioned again the Matt O'Reilly's contribution. He's that sort of touch player as well. And so when we kind of get these players in and around the box and their one-touch passing comes off, knowing that Kyogo's running, knowing that there's at least two defenders absolutely, on the diacam because they're wondering where Kyogo is anyway. That's going to be the best route for us to get a goal against a kind of multi-packed defence. And it's early in the season, and it will get better.
Yeah, you throw Palma into that mix as well.
Totally.
Having, somebody who looks like a player that can unlock a defence, i.e. by maybe shooting from range or doing that thing where he cuts inside and he puts that ball like he did the Motherwell into that channel and inviting either defenders or attackers to touch it. And if you don't touch it, then it's going on target.
And we're seeing these goals getting scored in great Celtic tradition in the last few minutes of the game. I don't think there's another club in Scotland, probably in the UK, who've scored such a high percentage of the goals in the last couple of years, in the last 10, 12 minutes. Which says a lot about the fitness, but it also is just the confidence that it will come. I mean, when Motherwell equalised, is there anybody who thought we're going to get a winner here? None of us thought that. How much time was there going to be left? But
Matt O'Reilly said he asked the referee and he said 2 minutes, and his first thought was it's enough time for a winner. Which I love that he admitted that, and he wasn't scared to say that.
When you look at the way the players reacted after that equaliser, it wasn't right. Everybody up, just get into the box, sling it in, and we'll maybe feed off a scrap and get lucky. It was like, look at Callum McGregor.
Yeah,
he was playing as if it was the 65th minute, not the 95th minute.
It was a well-crafted football goal, Kevin.
Yeah. There was nothing hurried about it. There was nothing desperate about it. There was nothing lucky about it. It could have been a goal crafted in the middle of the second half, the middle of the first half.
And sticking to what the manager was saying, Matt O'Reilly making that late run in, a possession build-up, and then Taylor's cross exquisite to Matt O'Reilly, picking him out. As you say, it wasn't one of those hitting hoops into the box and pile everybody in and see what happens.
And what season O'Reilly's having?
He's been the man in the match in every domestic game, more or less, hasn't he?
Pure dynamite.
Yeah, and it's great to see. And as you said there, if Hatate is now recapturing form, those two are playing alongside McGregor. I mean, we've already bigged up McGregor. I mean, they're an immovable triumvirate in the midfield, aren't they? Immovable. You just they're three are the first picks in the team sheet, aren't they? Because you know what you're going to get with them, certainly domestically. And then if that's the standard that's required to get into that Celtic midfield, then you look at the likes of Odin, Thiago Holm and Bernardo and saying, okay, show us what you got. Because you're going to have to be better than these guys or show something better than these guys to be included in the team. And that all feeds into, as you say, everything getting better and Celtic improving drastically between now and the end of the season.
Yep.
All goes well, I think. I'm excited as to what Brendan Rodgers Celtic will provide moving forward. It seems like ages until the Hearts game at Tynecastle. We've got another week of international football, and we're desperate for our club fix, aren't we?
I mean, can we not just get back to when we used to just play international games on a Wednesday? Yeah. And there was no interruption.
No.
Scotland used to qualify for World Cups and European Championships. Then instead of this contrived 2-week break, right?
Yeah.
And
the festival of football, as you ever call it,
nonsense,
stretching out the internationals Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Nonsense.
I agree with you. Kevin, that's nearly been an hour or 55 minutes.
You're joking.
Unbelievable. Yeah, listen, the time flies when you're just talking about Celtic and you just kind of enjoy the chat. We usually invite comments in and bring them in, but sometimes you just get lost in the chat and So, guys, if we didn't flick up your comments today, sorry about that, but I think we all enjoy a guest like Kevin coming on and hearing his slant and takes on all matters Celtic. So, like Alan Morrison always says, it's educational, it's enlightening, it's sometimes
Occasionally,
yeah, and intellectual as well. So
signs of a misspent youth.
yeah, from both of us.
The statistics.
Because your era kind of coincides with mine. This is always uncanny the way we think about specific Celtic things and specific
Random
players. Yeah,
random facts that nobody else is like ever been interested in.
It's funny because you'll maybe mention something from the past, and I'll be playing like Arthur Montford commentary or Archie commentary in my head, because that's how, as you say, random it is, and how kind of Rain manish I think we both are about Celtic and Celtic moments and stuff. But some great comments coming in. Like, great show. I love Kevin being on. Not as much as me, Jerry, but yeah, we do. Good man, Kevin. Yeah, there you go. So loving that. So people loving the show. Kaiser coming in, legends. Great show. Stay blessed. Thank you, Kaiser. Appreciate that. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed today, guys. It's always a pleasure having somebody like Kevin. But now for the sales pitch bit, yeah, we always do it, and we say thank you to MPH Group. The morning briefing is brought to you by MPH Group, and they're Scotland's award-winning family-run all-trade specialist covering all of mainland Scotland, and every service you opt for automatically enters you into MPH's incredible holiday giveaway, and you could win a 7-night stay at the luxurious 5-star Moon Palace Resort in Cancun, Mexico. And as you can see from the start line at the top, MPH Group specialise in plumbing, heating, kitchens and bathrooms, and we thank them for their sponsorship of the Celtic Way morning briefing. And before we go, just direct you to the strap line at the bottom. Hit that subscribe button. We encourage you to do that every day. And www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. And you subscribe to the Celtic Way website for £4 for 4 months or £18 for the year. Why not take out a yearly subscription and support top quality journalism in the process? That's subscribe button, guys. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. All that it means for me to say is, Kevin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure, Tony.
Love the chat. Scotland still need that solitary point to qualify for the European Championships in January next summer.
Scotland 14-13.
It's coming. It's
13,
coming.
14, 13, 14,
It's coming. It's coming, isn't it? We wish Steve Clark, boys, all the best. Glad that Callum McGregor came through last night unscathed as well as Gustaf Lagerbielke and Lewis Palma, and we wish the best. I think Alistair Johnston's currently playing against Kyogo Furuhashi and Ryo Hatate right now. Canada playing Japan, so to the victor the spoils in that one. We shall see what happens there in the fullness of time. But guys, I know there's no club football. I always say it's result dependent, but it's not really result dependent this weekend. But whatever you're up to, enjoy, and I shall see you soon, Kevin, on the Celtic Way morning briefing live. Have a wonderful weekend. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much.
Take care.